Hey crocheters, it is time for the second video in our Unicorn Hobby Horse Crochet Along. In this video, we are going to be adding the blaze, the eyes, the horn, the ears, and the top part of the halter to the unicorn. So there's actually not a bunch of crocheting, but it's going to be a longer video just kind of walking you through all of these steps. So I am excited to see how your guys' work is turning out. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the eyes. So to do that, we're going to be using our medium weight black yarn and our 3.5 mil hook. So we're going to start by making a magic ring. Moving a little bit in slow motion just in case you need a refresher on how to do this. All right, so there we have it. And we're going to get started by single crocheting 6 into the ring. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're going to go ahead and pull it tight, cinch it all the way up, and so for our second row we're going to put down, or we're going to use our row marker. I'm using a white piece of yarn, and we're going to increase 6. So at the end of the row we will have 12 stitches. So increase. So now we have 12 stitches at the end of row 2, and row 3 is going to be single crochet and then an increasing stitch. Repeated 6 times. So we'll have a total of 18 stitches when we're done. So at the end of row 3, you're going to cut a long tail, probably I would say 12 inches minimum, maybe longer, because you're going to be using it attaching the eye to the head. And if you're going to be embroidering on eyelashes or sewing on eyelashes, when you go around, you want to make sure you've got plenty of room. So we're going to take our yarn tail, our row marker out. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the highlights and the eyes. And so to do that, you're going to need 6 inches of white medium weight yarn, and you're going to thread that onto your yarn needle. So you've got about 1 inch on this side. You're not going to worry about knotting it. What you're going to do is you're going to go from the back side. You're going to work between the second and third row. You're going to go from the back side to the front, leaving about 1 inch in the back. You're going to go over 2 stitches, so over 2 holes, 1 and 2, and you're going to go down to the back. Then you're going to come up on the other side of that stitch, and you're going to go over 1 hole or 1 stitch and push it to the back. So those are going to be the highlights in the eyes. Go ahead and take your yarn needle off and simply knot these threads or these yarns in the back. You don't want to pull too tight because you can adversely shape the eye by pulling it. So, I mean, you want it to be, you want this to be loose, you know, the space in between, but you want the knot to be tight. I'm also going to tie my yarn tail in with one of those so that, you know, it's a little bit more secure. Alrighty, just like that. We're going to go ahead and cut off the extra, like so. And then you're going to do the exact opposite in the next eye. So you're going to have the highlights mirrored. So when you've added both of the highlights, they'll be mirror images of each other. At least the highlights will, like so. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be attaching the eyes to the head. So what you want to do is flip it over and put your middle finger in the PVC pipe, like this, and then flip it back over. This is going to help you be able to place the eyes correctly, because you really don't want them to be skiwampus. It looks really odd. So we're going to be placing the eyes in the 13th row back, counting from the nose. So you start counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So they're roughly going to be placed in this row and about 12 stitches apart. So I'm going to hold mine here really quick. And this will probably take a little bit of trying to get right. It's one of those things you place and you pin, and then you look at it again and, you know, decide if it needs to change at all. I've got a couple pins in that one. Put a couple pins in here. You also want to take into account the location of the highlights in the eyes when you're doing this. I might rotate my eyes a little bit. So take a look at it again, put it, kind of hold it balanced in your hand, see how that looks to you. Count the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I only am showing 10 right now in between. Actually, yeah, I think 10 is better. I think on my last one I did 12, but I think 10 is looking really good right now. Nope, I'm going to move them just a smidge. And so, I mean, they did look pretty good where they were sitting. My thought is we're going to go through and we're going to put a little bit of fiberfill behind the eyes when we sew them on. And I think that that will add just enough dimension that it will look better slightly farther apart. A little bit more like a real horse. I mean, horses have eyes on the sides of their heads, not in the front. So that's what we're trying to replicate here. So when you're happy with the placement, what you're going to do is you're going to thread your massive yarn tail onto your needle. Like so. I'm going to bring you guys a little closer for this, so hopefully you can see it better. So what we're going to do is, because we have a little bit of a ledge here, I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm going to go down through the next stitch and pull it through. Kind of helps to round off that corner. And then I'm going to go down and I'm going to grab a stitch in the super bulky yarn. Pull it through, and I'm not going to pull all the way tight just yet. I will after this next stitch. I'll go up one stitch, down the next, pull it tight, and grab another stitch in the yarn. And go around like so. I need to remove that one now. So I find that kind of doing this method where you weave a little bit through the through the stitches and then through the head, that it has a cleaner look to it. And in all reality, you can sew them on however you would like. I just find that this method works the best for me and has the best results. All right, so as you kind of come across the top here is when you're going to want to be thinking about eyelashes, if that's a part of your design. So I've got about 3/4 of my eye sewn on here. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get a little bit of fiber fill. And you don't want too much. You don't want it to be like a super round eye. You're just going to take some, just force it back there. About like so. And then continue stitching around. So I'm thinking on this next stitch is when I'm going to add my eyelashes. So I'm going to come up through a stitch here. Not nice and secure. Got a little bit of fiber fill leftovers coming out here. Alrighty. So to add eyelashes, you're just going to come out kind of farther into the head and then put it right back through. Like so. So, you know, there we have one eyelash. We can go down through this next stitch and then put a secondary eyelash. Something like that. Then just finish. I'm gonna rotate this so it's a little easier for me. Just finish sewing around the eye. All right, so here we are, we're right back at the beginning. So now you're just going to knot it off. Let's see, you want to make it a not very noticeable knot, so I'm going to try and work it as close to the bottom of the eye as I can. All right, there we go. See that hid pretty well. So yeah, so now it's tied off, and I'm just going to kind of dig the needle into it a little bit and let the yarn essentially be buried in the project. So I go down into the fiber fill and pull it out, and then just hide that end like that. So then you're going to follow that same procedure on this eye over here, and then we'll meet for the next step. All right, so now we have both of our eyes sewn on, and the next thing we're going to do is prep the fleece for the ears and the blaze. So you're going to need your fleece of choice. Thick and high quality really is best. If you can check out my crochet chat on that where I discuss that. And then you're going to need to print off this sheet, which if you don't have it already, I will link in the description. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your paper scissors and you're going to cut out along the outside of both of these shapes. And so if you, the horse blaze is a kind of generic, but if you want to do something more creative, you absolutely can. You know, you can do something more unicorn-ish. You could do stars or a heart or a moon shape. You could really do just about anything. Or if you're making like an actual stick horse, not a stick unicorn, you could make the markings to match your favorite horse. I don't know, you can make it as realistic as you want. For this tutorial, we're just going to stick with this typical horse blaze. I am really interested to see though. I think like stars or a heart would be super cute. I'd love to see somebody do that. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to grab your fabric pins. You're going to get ready to pin these shapes onto the fleece. So some types of fleece have very specific patterns, and if that is the case with the fleece you have, you definitely want to take that into account. This one is, you know, just kind of pretty, kind of galaxy, pastel galaxy inspired, you might say. And so these shapes fit each other pretty well. So I'll probably just do the ear first and then I'll do the blaze right next to it. But if you do have a very specific pattern on these, you want to take that into account as you are pinning these into place and making the selection on what you want showing. So we'll start with the ear, and you're just going to take your fabric scissors and cut right along the outside edge. If you feel like you need to pin it, you know, add a few more pins, that's perfectly all right. Anything to make it feel nice and comfortable. Round off that corner a little bit better. And so you're going to need 2 of the horse ears, so you're going to cut a second one of those, and you're going to cut out the horse blaze. So now we have our shapes all cut out. So the next thing you're going to do is, once again with your paper scissors, you're going to cut just outside these dashed lines. You want to be as close to the dashes as you can be and not cut them off. All right, got a little close on some of these, but I can still see them, so that's what counts. So what you're going to do next, we can set the horse blaze aside. We're going to take the ears, we're going to flip them to the back side. And you're going to place the leftover ear, just as centered as you can. And you're just going to make a mark on the fleece where each of the dashes are. This is going to show you where to make the snips. All right, so we've got one done. Go ahead and do it for the next one. So now both of the ears have their dashes on, and you're going to take scissors with super sharp tips, and you're going to make just the tiniest little cut right on each snip, like so tiny that it almost doesn't cut through to the back. Because you don't want these to rip through, and you just need a tiny little snip. So go through and make those tiny snips on each of the dashes on both of the ears. All right, so all of our fleece is prepped. Before we go ahead and make the ears, we're going to sew the blaze onto the face. So you're going to grab your head. I'll zoom out a little bit. All right, so we're going to be placing the blaze kind of where it feels natural, I guess, to you. You'd want it past the 6th row of the nose, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you don't want it sitting in here because we're going to be adding a halter later. I'm just going to kind of place it, roughly between the eyes. And then just pin it into place. It looks kind of pretty, I think, with the pins in it. It's almost like it's jeweled. Someday I'll work with beads in my crocheting, but that day is not this day. All right. So then you're going to get your sewing needle and thread. So when you've got your needle and thread, you're going to take probably about 2.5 feet and thread it through your yarn needle. I'm using pink because it matches what I'm working with, but definitely pick a color that works well with your project. And you're just going to tie a double knot in the end. Oh, I dropped my 2 ends. There we go. Like so. And we're going to start here at the bottom. So in the last video, my hands rolled off the screen, and also you couldn't see the pink thread that I was using. So I'm going to be stitching this one on this other unicorn, and I'm going to use black thread just for this demonstration so you guys can see. So when you have it pinned on, you're going to, first you're going to go up through the fleece. And on the other one, I started here at the bottom, but I already had that attached on this one, so I'm just starting kind of here. And instead of pulling it all the way through, you're going to put your needle through this loop, and then you're going to pull it tight. The yarn end, or the thread ends are going to want to stick up, so you're going to have to kind of coax them to settle underneath as best you can, like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go underneath, you're going to go through the fleece and then underneath a stitch, or at least a little bit of yarn. And then you're going to pull your needle up. And you want it to be so that there's this loop here that you're pulling your needle through, because that will give you this nice edge here and will make your stitches straight.
And you're just going to keep going around doing that. It's a little harder to hold still when you have the whole unicorn done. So this is what you're going to do. Like I said, you know, I used pink thread for these, but it just was not showing up on video.
So as you stitch along, you're probably going to need to get some more thread. So when you do, you're just going to knot it off and then continue around the way that you were working before till you get to the very end. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to make the crochet part of the ear. So you're going to need your burlap blanket yarn and your 8mm hook, and we're going to start with making a slip knot in our yarn. And we're going to go ahead and put it on your hook, and then we're going to chain 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're going to turn and we're going to work into this second stitch here. And we're going to single crochet 7. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then we're going to do a triple increase. So we're going to put 3 single crochets into this stitch. So we've got 1, 2, and 3, and that is going to take us around the corner. So now that we've turned the corner, you're going to single crochet 7 along the back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then in the last stitch, we're going to do an increase. So 1 and 2. So at the end of this row, you should have 19 stitches. So for row 3, we're going to do an increase stitch, and then we're going to single crochet 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're going to do an increase stitch, and then a half double crochet. And if you don't know how to do that, what you do is you wrap the yarn around your hook first, then you insert it into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, so you have 3 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 at the same time. That's how you do a half double crochet. The next stitch is going to be an increasing stitch. Oop, lost it. So 1, 2 for an increase, and then we're going to be single crocheting 7. 1, 2, 3. Move that. 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll do an increasing stitch. So 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet. So at the end of row 3, you'll have 23 stitches. So at the end of row 3, you're going to take out your 8mm hook and you're going to switch it for your 5.5mm. And you're also going to take the fleece ear that you've made, and what you're going to do is you're going to line it up with kind of the corresponding stitches. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 here kind of on the end. And we'll see if I can show you kind of what we have here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. And so these stitches line up with these 4. So we're going to be working into this stitch here, or this snip here. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook through the next stitch, then through the hole in the fleece, provided I made a big enough hole to actually get through the fleece. There we go. We're going to yarn over and pull through. So this stitch we're actually doing an increase, so we'll add 1 more stitch there. So after that increase stitch, we're going to single crochet 8, doing the same thing, working through the stitch in your crocheting, then going through the hole in the fleece, yarning over and pulling through. And as you do this, you want to work with a similar, I'd say, tightness as you did with the 8mm hook, so that it's not drastically tighter. We use the 5.5mm hook so that we can go through the holes in the fleece and not stretch it out. And next we're going to do an increasing stitch. Ooh. So because this is bowing out a little bit excessively and it's making it hard, I'm going to just force it in, and then I'm going to continue crocheting around, because then the stitches are going to line up better. And also, it's a good idea to tuck your yarn tail in there so that you don't have to worry about weaving it in later. So the next stitch is an increase stitch. We'll do 1 and then 2. Then a half double crochet. And 1 more increasing stitch. Then we're going to single crochet 8. Then we're going to do an increasing stitch. I've got 1 and 2. Then we're going to single crochet 1 and 2. So when we straighten it all out, we can pull out our stitch marker. This is what our ear looks like. Sometimes it does take a little bit of shaping with your hands to make things kind of how you like it. So before we pull the yarn, tie off the yarn, we're going to fold it in half here at the end. And we're just going to reach into that stitch right across from it, yarn over and pull through. Whoop. There we go, just like that. Then go ahead and cut it. You're going to want a 6 to 8 inch tail, so you've got plenty of length to use in securing it to the head. You're going to pull it nice and tight. And when you have both ears done, they're going to look like this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the ears to the head. So we're going to take our 2 ears, we're going to be placing them in the 20th row, counting from the nose back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So back here-ish, they're wide enough that they're going to cover up a couple of rows. So you're going to, it's going to be in 18, 19, 20 range. So I'm just going to set a pin, actually right here in row 19, to kind of help me remember where they're going. And they're going to be 10 to 11 stitches apart. So you want to go right down the middle and count. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So right about here, kind of where I have roughly placed these pins, is going to be where we want our ears to sit. So the ears are tapered at the bottom, so they're going to sit, somewhat like so. So we're not going to necessarily put the tip of our ear right in that stitch that's marked with the pin. Rather, that's kind of where we want the side of the ear to sit when it connects to the head. So you're going to take a couple of pins, and to be perfectly honest, they don't work that well in Bernat blanket yarn. We're just making projects so much bigger than what fabric pins are really used for. But you got to do something. So we're going to pin it into place kind of as best we can there. And then we're going to pin the other ear on as well. Following that same sort of look where the edge sits right where that pin is. And the bottom of the ear is a little bit lower. So it's going to look a bit like this. And if you need to kind of even things out a little bit, massage it and adjust it till it looks right to you. Alrighty, so I put this side on, and it was a little bit of a doozy, so I'm going to try and do a better job of explaining on this ear. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your yarn tail and you're going to work it through a stitch that is close to where it is to preliminarily secure it, like so. Then you're going to work it up through the next stitches in the head and stitches in the ear to secure it as you go. And you can remove the pins when you no longer need them or when they're going to be in the way. So it's going to be about 3 or 4 stitches that you're going to attach here along the front. And when in doubt, stand it up, take a look. I think we're going to do 4 stitches. And pull it tight. So it does take an eye to get it on kind of the way you want. So after every couple of stitches, stop, take a look, see if you like how it's laying, and then continue on. So now we're going to rotate it to the back, and we're going to start attaching it here. So you're going to start working kind of on a downward diagonal through the stitches in the ear, and then stitches in the head. Alright, so we've made 2 stitches. So we're going to pull it tight and we're going to take a look at it. I think we're doing pretty good so far, but I want to make sure that we secure it down here nice and tight and kind of straighten it up a little bit. So continue around. We'll make sure to do that. Alrighty, once again we've made 2 stitches. Do I like how that's sitting? I'm really pretty pleased with that. I think we'll add one kind of final stitch here and secure it down like so. So on the first ear that I secured, I didn't tie off the knot off the end, because what I like to do, and I may not have enough yarn tail on these, I like to grab the yarn tails and bring them to a central location and then knot them together so that they're extremely secure. Oh, and my yarn are not long enough, so I can't do that. But if you have a long enough yarn tail, just bring them to the same point, obviously underneath, knot them together and then hide the ends. I don't, so I'm going to just have to knot these off individually. All right, the ears are on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the horn.
So the next we're going to start the horn. So the first thing we're going to do is form the magic ring. And then we're going to single crochet 6 into it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're going to go ahead and cinch that up. Then grab a yarn marker. And then you're going to put that there and begin the second row, which is going to be so the second row is going to be increase. So increase 1 and 2, then single crochet 2. And we're going to do that twice. So at the end of the row, we will have 8 stitches. Then row 3 is going to be single crochet 8. So 1, 2, 3. Continue around, so you've made all 8 single crochets. Row 4 is going to be increase, and then single crochet 3. So that was our increase. Then we'll go 1, 2, and 3, and we'll repeat that again. So increase, And then 1, 2, 3. So at the end of this row, you'll have 10 stitches. So then row 5 is single crochet 10 and 10. And sometimes as you work, the top is going to come undone a little bit. And whenever that happens, just pull on that yarn tail and cinch it right back up.
So instead of walking you through the next 22 rows, I am just going to tell you, because it's the same pattern and it repeats over and over and over again. So what you're going to do, well, it'll be written up on the screen, but you're going to increase, then single crochet an increasing number, and you'll do that 2 times, followed by a single crochet row of that same. So it will be typed up here, so it's makes a lot more sense. But essentially all you're doing is adding rows until you get to this shape. So you've got 6 here, then you did increase, single crochet 2 for 8, then single crochet 8, then increase, single crochet 3 times 2 for 10, then single crochet 10, then increase, single crochet 4 times 2 for 12, single crochet 12, and you just keep doing that until you get to the very last row, which is row 22, which will be increase, single crochet 12 times 2 for a total of 28 stitches. So when you finish that, we will get started on attaching the horn to the head. So before you can attach the horn to the head, you need to add some fiber fill to the horn. Going to get as much in there as you can. And mine is bunching right here because that's where the fiber fill is sitting. So you can just take a hook and make sure that it gets all the way up into the very tip top, like so that it lays more naturally. And you're just going to fill it as full of fiber fill as you can. You're probably not going to be able to fill it much more full than this, but that's okay. When we start attaching it, or when we have it mostly attached, we're going to add more fiber fill. But up in here, you want to make sure that it's packed as tightly as it can and that it has a good shape. So now you're ready to attach the horn to the head. You're going to place it just right above the blaze, centered on the head, like so. And you're going to use your fabric pins just to hold it lightly in place so that you have a good shape when you're sewing it on. Alrighty, I forgot to take out my row marker. Let me go ahead and do that. And now what you're going to do is you're going to thread your yarn tail onto your needle. And honestly, this is probably a pretty excessive yarn tail, so I'm going to cut off a couple of inches. That seems a little more reasonable. Alrighty, and so what you're going to do is you're going to work, let's see if I can give you guys a good visual on what I'm going to do here. So you're going to go underneath the stitch in the head. You're going to pull it up, but you're not going to pull it all the way tight, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up through this next stitch in the horn and then back down through the next stitch. So you're going to pull it, I still wouldn't pull it all the way tight, you still want some flexibility. Then you're going to go through the next stitch in the head. And you're just going to do that for a couple of stitches, then you're going to pull it tight. Alrighty, so something like that. And you can see that it makes a really clean edge, which is why I do that. So I pulled it nice and tight so that it's secured way back here, but if I kind of pull it up, it loosens these nearer ones up again, so I can go ahead and continue that same process. So you're just going to continue doing this all the way around. Well, actually, when you get to about 3/4 of the way around, you're going to stop and add more fiber fill. So we'll pick up there. Alrighty, so when you've gotten about 3/4 of the way around, you're going to take more of your fiber fill. You're going to put it into the horn. Until it fills out nicely. And if you have lumps, you can definitely use your crochet hook. Kind of helps straighten things out that maybe you can't quite get to. And then you're just going to keep sewing the rest of the way around. So when you make it back to where you started, just going to put in a last stitch to kind of sew it all together. Looks like I need one more through there. And then you're going to knot it off. Sorry, you keep hearing the PVC tea landing on my table. Pull it nice and tight. Then I just like to bury it in the project. Pull it off to the side and then weave in the end. So there we go. It's starting to look like a unicorn. The last thing we need to do is we're going to top stitch on the halter. So to add the halter, you're going to pick one of the colors from your Bernat blanket cake, and we're going to start on the bottom, and we're going to work in in between the 5th and the 6th row, counting from the nose back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to work right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our hook underneath one stitch. This is a little difficult to balance, so I'm going to do my very best. You're going to pull it through like so, leaving a little tail here. Then you're going to go in through the next stitch. You're going to go underneath it like that. You're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull through both. And that is your first stitch. And you just keep doing that same process all the way around. That row. So when we get back to the bottom, because we're working in a spiral, they will be off a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go in through your next stitch, then jut over to where your first stitch took place and make a stitch like that. And you're going to cut a little yarn tail and pull it through. Then with your two tails here, you're just going to knot them together. And it becomes a pretty clean transition. Excuse me. Then you just weave in the ends. And when you pick it back up, you do kind of have to adjust everything that's been smushed. But there we have the entire head done of our stick unicorn.